Right there, ladies and gentlemen, in the flesh. And he is joined by three other extraordinary members of the latest, greatest generation. We're going to be talking about Shattering Stereotypes. I'm John Avlon of the Daily Beast. There are a lot of stereotypes about veterans when they return home from war. A Pew poll this summer found that, thankfully, the military is the most respected occupation in the country. That's as it should be. Now, journalism, we're down with lawyers and corporate executives right now. Only members of Congress, I think, are probably lower than us right now. But there are a lot of misconceptions, pervasive misconceptions about the military. A survey last year found that a majority of Americans think most vets suffer from PTSD, something that's not true. Another survey found that there's a belief that post 9/11 vets are more likely to be addicted to drugs or alcohol. Again, not true. So let's talk about the truth about this extraordinary generation of post 9/11 veterans. With the veterans here with us, you saw Army Major Anthony Smith. Now, he now runs 3 martial arts dojos for at-risk kids and disabled children. He's an ordained minister, and he's also a mixed martial arts fighter. We're going to get into that a little bit later. We have Kate Norley, former Army combat medic who served in extremely dangerous areas of Iraq, including Fallujah and Sada Siri, and she's now studying to become a doctor in New York City. Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. She did combat duty in Iraq with the Hawaiian National Guard, and even while serving in Congress, as one of 2 female veterans in Congress at the moment, she remains a captain in the National Guard. And then Carl Tegen, a veteran who served in the first Gulf War, a little bit of perspective on this other generation. Since 1999, you've been with AT&T, where you're executive director of AT&T's defense segment, Government Solutions. You were also involved in the immediate 9/11 recovery. We'll talk a little bit about that. And behind them, we're going to show a little before and after photo. This is them back in the day in combat. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's have a conversation with these 4 extraordinary Americans. So, Anthony, let's start with you, because folks just saw your video. Now, you had a long and difficult road when you came back from Iraq. Tell us a little bit about the injuries you overcame and the reception you met when you got back home.
Well, when I got back home, I discovered that I had TBI, PTSD. I'm blind in my right eye, lost hearing in my right ear, lost my right arm, which is visible, lost my right kidney, resectional bypass within my stomach and colon, lost my portion of my right leg, have a prosthetic girdle hip on the inside to help me walk. One of the biggest misconceptions that people have, they thought I was Rambo, and I'm not Rambo, but don't make me angry. So one of the biggest perception is that all of us come back with a certain type of PTSD that Rambo has all the time, and I want to break that stereotype to let them know that all of us want to come back and be able to serve in our communities as well.
But you returned to your community in Arkansas, where you'd been a police chief, and the local municipality had a problem with that, didn't they?
Yes, they assumed since I had PTSD, they didn't think they can trust me with a weapon anymore. They were scared I might get out there and freak out, because they saw so many different movies about PTSD. They heard so many different stories about PTSD that they just automatically assumed that I was going to crack up. But unfortunately, I have the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ on my side that taught me that a mind is a terrible thing to waste.
And now not only are you an ordained minister and running the 3 dojos, but you compete in mixed martial arts with folks who are not disabled. Is that right?
Correct. I just finished winning the Arkansas State Championship in Taekwondo. I'm the Missouri State Champion, the Arizona State Champion, California State Champion, and Virginia State Champion, and plan on going to beat somebody up this weekend in the cage.
I love it. I love it. Now, Kate, you were recognized with a combat medic badge for your service in Iraq. You're also an expert in combat stress, and you've treated a lot of your fellow soldiers in Iraq. Tell us about that process of being a combat medic, a woman, and treating so many of your fellow soldiers.
Well, first, I just want to say it's an honor to not only be up here, but I also need to recognize really fast, specifically with combat stress, that as we met backstage just now, we realized that battle buddies, fellow medics of mine, had treated you during your injury. And so I'm a little shaken up by that right now because I'm very proud of them, but I'm also really proud to see the results. It's a really great thing. In battling with combat stress, a lot of it seemed to be, I don't know, maybe second nature, that you need to try and comfort someone, talk to them, have them, you know, the reality sometimes gets drawn away from the situation. It doesn't feel real. And so if you can try and include yourself in that moment with someone, that seems to be a positive role that you can play with them, and just talk, a lot of talk therapy. It's not so much that you step away and have someone explain it for themselves, just listen to them, continue to contribute with what they're sharing. And
as you've transitioned back as a medic, what sort of misconceptions have you met about your own experience and as now you're training to become a doctor?
I think that I definitely had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder when I got back, because the idea was, you know, you wear your unit crest, someone sees you and it's right away, oh, you know, who is it that you're supporting? You know, is it your dad? Is it your boyfriend, your husband? Well, no, actually, you know, I served. And it was like, oh, okay. And then a lot of times people's first reaction is, well, you know, you're a female, and you know, I'm sure they took good care of you, which is a nice idea. But the truth is that, you know, I served as well, and that, you know, I'm very fortunate to have returned home, but that kind of suggesting that I was not in the same fight as the rest of my peers is a little condescending. And so my only response to that initially when I got back was to challenge people to push-up contests, which I actually won. I'm undefeated right now. But
are you taking challengers? Is that part of what's going on here?
I'm just saying, if anybody else asks me who I'm here to support when I'm wearing my own unit crest, then yes, I'm going to ask you to have a push contest with me, for sure.
And you better not try to win. I got your back.
Congresswoman, you know, you have the distinction of being one of the first 2 female veterans in Congress. You joined the military after being the youngest woman elected to the Hawaii State Legislature after 9/11 in 2003. What has that process been of entering the ultimate old boys club, not just Congress, but congressmen who are vets?
I think this is something I'm sure Kate would agree with, is that, you know, I served enlisted for 4 years during my first deployment to Iraq in a medical unit. Second deployment, I served as a military police platoon leader. And for us, when we enlist, we go through basic training, we're working with our battle buddies. It's not so much like, wow, this is what it feels like to be a woman in the military. You're a soldier first, like everyone else that you serve with. And that's the experience that we have and that we bring back. And so when we go through the experience of coming back, and for me, it's been an interesting 9 months in Congress for a lot of reasons, but some of the conversations that I've had post-DOD change in policy saying, well, women should be given the opportunity to serve in combat roles, still having conversations with my colleagues who just say, yeah, you know, Tulsi, thanks for your service, and I just really don't think that I could ever support a woman getting shot at. And very respectfully, you know, I talk about people like Kate, people who I've had the opportunity to serve with, and let them know that this has actually been happening for quite a while. Women have been getting shot at. Women have been saving lives. Women have been serving right next to their male battle buddies. And this is not something that any member of Congress will change other than through their attitudes. And that's where I think there's opportunity to bridge the gap between, you know, perception and reality.
One more question before we get to Carl. You obviously are in a unique position in a lot of ways, but one of which is that during this whole shutdown, as the shutdown inevitably impacts members of our military in small ways and big, you have friends who are still serving right now in Afghanistan. What messages are you hearing from them that you bring back to your colleagues in Congress?
This is personal on a different level for those of us who are hearing from our friends who are in Afghanistan now, who are sending us emails, Facebook messages saying, what the heck are you guys doing there? I mean, really, seriously, put this in perspective. You want to talk about battles. These guys are fighting battles. We have the privilege of serving all of them and the entire country here. Get over whatever is standing in the way of it and do your job. We've seen a lot in the news lately, the Pay Our Military Act that was passed, but, it was not covering everything. So, just yesterday we voted and passed on something that would actually take care of the survivor benefits for the service members that we lost just a couple days ago in Afghanistan. Absolutely unacceptable that we are in this position of having to do these little fixes because our government is shut down. And where the opportunity lies in all of this is, while there are fewer veterans serving in Congress today than ever before in our country's history, we are talking. We understand there is that bond that exists, even if you're meeting someone for the first time, that we get what it means to put the mission first, that we do have strongly held principles and different ideas on how to get to that end state, but we also know how to work together to be able to find that common ground and compromise to be able to accomplish that.
Yeah, something that Congress could learn from the military, no question. Carl, you served in the first Gulf War. You'd been in the military for over a decade previously. Now you oversee for AT&T contracts with the U.S. Army and make a real focus to hire vets. From that perspective, from a generation apart perhaps from these folks, how do you see this generation of post 9/11 vets as distinct? What are their distinct characteristics?
So that's funny that you asked if there are distinct characteristics. I guess I would say that the veterans today aren't very distinct from veterans from my day. I'm the old veteran here.
Sorry about that.
So the characteristics that we find as an employer attractive, the attributes that we like, their leadership skills, their loyalty, their ability to get the job done, that hasn't changed. That was always the case. I'd say the one thing that may be different is today the veterans that I see coming out of the military are quite technically savvy, which of course for AT&T is a great thing.
Sure.
So we like that. I mean, they were all born with cell phones in their hands, it seems. So I think
AT&T cell phones, I'm sure.
of course. Anthony wanted to get a discount from me up here.
He did. He hit you up for a discount on yeah.
We'll work something out, Anthony.
Y'all recording that?
But in all seriousness, given that military vets come to the civilian workforce with a set of experiences that make them, by most measures, more qualified to deal with stressful situations. They've proven their ability to operate under fire where any office politics are going to seem small by comparison. How come unemployment remains such a stubborn problem, in particular in the veteran community? I would imagine their unemployment rate should be lower if it was purely on qualifications.
So I can't speak for why there's such a large unemployment rate, but for the ones that we go after, there's a tremendous match of skill sets. So I really couldn't answer why it would be lower in the civilian workforce.
Do you consider, though, veterans in some ways come into the job more qualified than the average American because of that unique set? Do you think there's an underappreciated opportunity?
Absolutely. I mean, they bring all those skills out of the box. We don't have to train them. We don't have to teach them loyalty. We don't have to teach them to be leaders. They come with that. They have that experience when they come to us.
Kate, when you got back to the United States, I mean, when vets talk, and this is a question for both you and Anthony, what's that community like in terms of the frustrations that they feel about integration? Obviously, we've come a long way since the 1970s and the kind of disrespect that was shown to a lot of Vietnam-era vets. But there's a specific set of concerns, maybe gripes, that affects this generation.
Well, what I always talk to other veterans about is we come from different lifestyles. You know, we never understood how they can have a shooting at Virginia Tech and people say those people have PTSD and the whole community runs toward them. But then you bring a veteran back and say he has PTSD, and everybody runs away from him. You know, so we always had that disconnect that we had the same problem as probably even worse than a person that probably had to deal with a shooting that not demean Virginia Tech shooting. But we know that's the type of stuff that we as veterans look at, that it's just like that community just doesn't understand us. So I found out that the biggest thing that can go on was having a good support base. You know, that's really what helped me. You know, I had places like NASA, I had Challenge Athlete Foundation, Mission Continue, Operation Rebound, that pushed me back out there and gave me a purpose and gave me something to do at that time. You know, they took me on a ski trip, and Sandy told me it's going to be the fastest you ever go down a hill. I skied down a hill, and then I say, like, dude, I could probably do anything now. So it's that disconnect that we're missing. It's not really a military civilian thing. It's just that mentality that sits out there that overlooms everybody, that my PTSD is different from another person's PTSD, but it's all the same type of syndrome.
But Kate, is there a fraternity among vets of this generation that feels distinct when you talk about among each other about the challenges of reentering?
I think so. As far as the fraternity is concerned, I mean, anybody here, if there's prior service, if you bump into someone, you find out where they served, you all of a sudden you click and you become friends, because that's something that's a very special bond that it's unique, very unique. I think in carrying over with the transition, I think there's different levels of transition when you come back from combat. I think that you know, we talk all about everything's mission based, and all of a sudden the mission when you come home is what? It's question mark. What do I do? And setting up goals for ourselves. Do I finish my education? Do I go get a job? And what is that job? What is my job that I've worked in the service, is that going to be transferable? So kind of shifting what your focus is, but it's difficult because we start to do that on our own where we're used to doing it collectively. And it's much more difficult to start to think just for yourself as opposed to your unit, your battle buddies. And so I think that what he mentioned, I mean, if there are organizations that you stay in touch with your comrades, that you look after one another, and hopefully there's enough community outreach that they are aware of who's coming home, who's in our community that's going to be looking for a job, that's going to need support, so we can help, you know, reintegrate them back into the community.
And that's a profound point. I mean, the military ethos is very much focused on the mission success, the group success, and maybe the more individualistic, every man or woman for himself here is part of the transition difficulty. That's what you're saying.
And also the age different as well. You know, you bring back a kid that's 19, 20, 21 years old, and he has to deal with an amputation or PTSD the rest of his life. It's different from me, who got injured at 36. You know, I probably did just about everything I wanted up to 36, I hope, you know. And then I have a better chance of moving and having a more base than a kid that's getting injured with PTSD.
Carl, you said that there have been actually advances in bridging the gap in terms of people coming from the military and able to put in what their skill set is and translating that to a civilian context that maybe didn't exist a generation ago.
Sure. So in April of this year, 2013, AT&T set a goal to hire 5,000 veterans and family members in the next 5 years. We're well on our way to do that, and some of the techniques we've used to do that are we've put a website in to translate skill sets so that a service member departing the military can put in their MOS. They may not know the terminology in the commercial world, but it maps it over to them. We post all of our job recs on the career sites for veterans. And then we've also got an employee resource group within the company with over 7,000 members that has been in place for 30 years, I might add. And those folks actually work with veterans to help them bridge that gap. We have ambassadors that go out and help translate what the job opportunity is and how the veteran should apply for it.
Congressman, I want to focus on another generational point. You know, as we look at the pathetic polarization in Congress right now, and one of the issues is there is that lack of mission, the sense of unified mission among members of Congress. In the past, that golden era of bipartisanship that existed in that greatest generation after World War II, is part of the polarization now, do you think, maybe an unintended consequence of the volunteer army, that there's not that community of common experience to bring people together across partisan lines?
Yeah, I think when you look at comparing people like, our former senior senator from Hawaii, Senator Daniel Inouye, Medal of Honor recipient, someone who stood up and raised his hand to serve at a time when our country was denouncing Japanese American people, throwing members of his family into concentration camps in Hawaii, where they said, no, you can't serve with the rest of the Army, you've got to form your own Nisei, or Japanese American unit. And to this day, that unit remains the most highly decorated infantry unit in the entire United States Army's history. But people like him who stood up and continued to serve, they continued with that sense of purpose when they came back, along with people like Senator Ted Stevens, who was Senator Inouye's best friend. Those are the examples that we grew up with, and I think show where there can be a bridge between that generation and this generation of people who are coming back to serve. We have a few veterans who were elected this last cycle. We've got many more veterans who are seeing, hey, I have an opportunity to continue my service to our country now that I'm home, and that my experience matters and will make a difference. And as both Kate and Anthony talked about, that bond is there between veterans who are serving, Democrats and Republicans alike, and that opportunity to be friends, be partners, and understand what our collective mission is. We have an opportunity to bring that back, that same thing that existed for our World War II veterans as well as our Vietnam veterans in Congress.
Is there a community of this next generation of vets in Congress?
It's starting to grow. It's starting to grow. I mean, we find ourselves, you gravitate towards people who can kind of understand and speak the same language. And, on the House floor, we say, hey, what's going on? What are you guys thinking about? Here's what we think, and try to see how we can work a way through this. And I think as more veterans are elected or more veterans choose to continue their service, that community will continue to grow.
Well, maybe that group will help break the stalemate. It'd be great. I'd like to end in just the final 2 minutes, each of you giving your thoughts about what you think the legacy will be of this generation of vets. Start with Carl.
So this generation of vets, I guess we've been at this about 10 years or so. It's, I think that it's like any other generation of vets. They've done their duty. They've done a fabulous job, and I think they should be proud of what they've done.
But no millennial bashing or praising. You think it's just a continuity.
So the difference, I would say, I remember Vietnam. And when I joined the military, it was not chic to be in the military. And I think it's fair to say that the American population today has a completely different attitude towards the military.
No question. Thank God for it. Congresswoman.
I'll pick up where Carl left off. I think when you look at the different generations of people who've served in different conflicts in our country's history, I think with our generation, you'll find veterans who are fiercely proud of their service, who are not afraid to say it and display it and to continue that service upon returning home. And regardless of the political conversations and debates that go on about these various conflicts and what takes us to and from them, we continue to be proud of our service, and we continue to encourage others to find their way, whatever it may be, to serve our country.
Kate?
The two that I'm most proud of are one that I'm a part of, was a part, and hopefully always will be a part of a military community that has members that are serving of all different backgrounds, regardless of their religious belief, their sexuality, their ethnicity, along with the idea that we are working on helping veterans be able to continue to serve and that they can go back and can continue to work. So the idea that you come home, if you want to stay in, you can work with someone that may be an amputee, and they can continue to perform and do their duties and do it proud.
Anthony, final word.
I just want to say to all the older veterans that are out there that came before us, I got to give much love to them, because they made it better for folks like us, because they came back to hellacious stuff, and they made sure that guys like me didn't come back to stuff like that. They even helped me find an awesome wife, when I got back. So shout out to them wives out there that put up with us PTSD guys and toil with that. But this generation's gonna, you can see them even prospering way more than generations before. They're more athletic personnel that are out there that are working with that are veterans. younger guys that are stepping up to the plate so the other veterans wouldn't go out. And there's a bigger camaraderie that is more open than concealed.
Well, thank you all for your service. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the latest, greatest generation.